On today's episode, I'll break down what went wrong for the Blackhawks and their loss to Jonathan Toews and the Jets, and I'll also get into some updates on the OHL and WHL prospects.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Just want to say thank you to everyone for helping me reach 2,000 followers on the Locked On Blackhawks X account. Now go and show some love to Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram if you could, as that's the next account that I'm trying to boost up here and grow. And I have to let you all know as well that today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Go and download the Game Time app now, create an account, and then use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off on your first purchase. All right, happy Halloween, Blackhawks fans. Happy Friday. Hope everyone's start to their Halloween weekend is going wonderfully. Do want to apologize for just now getting out today's episode. Had to go into work today for the day job and was a little bit of a quick turnaround following last night's contest. So sadly, this was the earliest that I could record today's show. But kicking things off here on today's episode, Jonathan Toews wins his reunion matchup over the Blackhawks last night up in Winnipeg as the Hawks fell 6-3 to kickstart their 6-game road trip. And this was actually the first time the Hawks this season have really lost by more than one goal. Sure, they did fall 3-1 to the Los Angeles Kings back on Sunday. However, the third goal that the Kings scored in that game came via an empty netter late. So this was the first true multi-goal defeat that the Blackhawks have suffered this season. And for that to come in Game 11, I think goes to show the progress that is being made by this young group and just how competitive they've been early on in this 25-26 season. And even despite losing by 3 goals last night, despite giving up a season-high 6 tallies, I really didn't think it was that putrid of a road performance by the Hawks, considering, this is a very quality Jets veteran-led team. They were in their own building. Connor Hellebuyck was in between the pipes. Now, the defense certainly wasn't good enough. The structure broke down too many times. They also shot themselves in the foot and made some poor decisions throughout the course of the game. But I really do think it was a more competitive showing and wasn't as lopsided as maybe the final score could suggest. And the Blackhawks actually led 49-42 in shot attempts, 12-11 as well in high danger chances, and had a 2.49 to 2.32 edge in expected goals for, with all of those stats coming at 5-on-5. But I just think the major difference in the final outcome was when the Blackhawks made their mistakes, the Jets pounced on them and they capitalized. And the same really couldn't be said the other way around. And the Hawks sure had their opportunities in this one, especially early on, that really could have changed the vibe around the game for the rest of the way. Frankie Nazar had himself yet another breakaway opportunity that Connor Hellebuyck stopped. Ryan Green also had a breakaway opportunity in that first period. He would go on to ring a shot off the post during the third period as well. And then when Bedard and Frank Nazar, like I just talked about with Frankie's breakaway, but even though the Blackhawks beat Hellebuyck 3 times last night, one of them came off of a fluky bounce off Murphy's dump in. That gave Teuvo Teravainen a yawning cage. And then the other was from an unbelievable between-the-legs maneuver pulled off by Andre Burakovsky. But going against, when he faced the Blackhawks' most dangerous and legitimately threatening opportunities, particularly against Frankie Nazar and Connor Bedard, he came up with all of those high leverage saves. But Bedard and Nazar, I thought, were definitely the 2 most dangerous skaters for the Blackhawks last night. Bedard tallied 3 shots on goal, tied Nazar for the team lead with 5 individual scoring chances and 7 individual shot attempts. Just wasn't able to get one past Hellebuyck. And kind of like he said, following his hat trick bid on Tuesday against the Senators, sometimes they go in and sometimes they don't. He had his chances. One of them was a real nice, typical toe drag, curl and drag release that Bedard loves to go to so frequently. Hellebuyck just made an even better blocker save, and sometimes you just got to tip your cap to the opposing goaltender. But on the bright side, Bedard, while he didn't find the back of the net, did wind up tallying 2 primary assists, and altogether was certainly the Blackhawks' best player in this game. They led 22-10 in shot attempts when he was on the ice at 5-on-5, also led 12-4 in scoring chances, had a 2-1 edge in goals for. Bedard was making things happen, especially during that third period and in the latter stages of the game. He just wasn't able to sneak one past Hellebuck. It was just one of those nights for him. But you love to see him, even when he doesn't find the back of the net, and even when it was, I'm not trying to say it was the best performance by the Blackhawks last night. They deserved to lose this game with the mistakes that they made. It just wasn't as maybe horrible as the 3-goal loss goes to show. But I love to see Bedard, even in a night like that, still bringing his A game, still being the most threatening Blackhawk. And I love to see the same thing out of Frank Nazar as well. I think he was right behind Bedard in terms of the best players for the road squad last night. And Nazar led the Blackhawks with 5 shots on goal. Like I just mentioned, had 7 individual shot attempts and 5 individual scoring chances, which tied Connor Bedard for the team lead. And we just continue to see Frank Nazar's speed gives him so many chances on a nightly basis. He's just even going back to last year, right? His wheels and his vision, his play recognition allows him to get so many odd man rushes, so many breakaway chances. He just hasn't been able to finish them maybe as frequently as we would like, but I don't have any worries about that, Blackhawks fans. The kid's still only 21 years old. He's going to figure out that finishing touch a little bit more as he gains some more experience and gets a little bit more mature and figures out how each netminder kind of reacts and handles those types of situations. But I love to see Connor Bedard and Frank Nazar make an impact and play solid hockey, even if it wasn't a losing effort by the Blackhawks. And both of these guys just continue to be at the forefront of what the Blackhawks do offensively. Bedard with 2 assists last night. That now gives him 14 points through his opening 11 games, currently tied for 16th in the NHL. He is certainly off to his best start in his 3 years now in the NHL. And Frankie Nazar, even though he didn't put up a point last night, definitely made an impact and made his presence felt. And the kid, at 21 years old in his first full NHL season, is still a point-per-game player through his opening 11 games with 5 goals and 6 assists. But comparatively, those two, the best players for the Blackhawks, Connor Hellebuck came up with big-time saves when he was tested by those two guys, whereas the 3 best players for the Winnipeg Jets, Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Gabe Vilardi, it felt like they buried their most dangerous chances that they generated on the night. Of the 6 Jets goals that they potted in this game, 4 of them were scored by that top line. Gabe Vilardi with 2, Mark Scheifele with a little bit of a softie as well on Spencer Knight. And then Kyle Connor, when the Blackhawks made a little bit of a late charge there in the third, kind of made things interesting, cutting their deficit to 2 with like 5 to 6 minutes remaining. Connor dashed any hopes of a comeback for them as he absolutely roofed a backhanded shot up over Spencer Knight's left shoulder. That put the Jets back ahead by 3 and basically stamped and sealed the deal on that one. But yeah, when they got their best looks, they converted on them. And the Blackhawks, they just didn't. 4 of the team's 6 goals from that dangerous top line of the Winnipeg Jets. They each had 3-point games. And I think this was a little bit of a learning moment for the Blackhawks defense. You obviously want to be as clean as you can at all times in the defensive zone, but that's especially true when you're playing such a dangerous top line that's really doing all of the heavy lifting in a game. And that's what was happening with Connor, Scheifele, and Gabe Vilardi in this one. And there were just too many mistakes made by the Blackhawks, both in terms of decisions and in terms of coverage when they were out there on the ice. The first goal that Gabe Vilardi scored in this game, Louis Crevier, poor play recognition, poor decision in the neutral zone, steps up and loses a foot race to a loose puck, ends up leading to a 2-on-1 in the other direction, and Scheifele throws Vilardi a beautiful saucer pass. That gave the Jets a 2-1 lead going into the first intermission that really, I think, gave them some momentum the rest of the way. And then also on Gabe Vilardi's second goal of the game, Alex Vlasic just a little bit too lackadaisical, and it was a split second. That's all it really takes in this game. a split second where you get caught puck watching, and that allows Velarde to get the separation that he needed in order to get that one-timer off. Beats Knight for a second goal of the game. So the Blackhawks, just when you have such dangerous skaters on the ice for the opposition, they got to do a better job of their defensive zone structure and not giving them as much time and space to work with as they did last night. So I thought it was a little bit of a learning lesson for this Blackhawks young defense, and I thought it was also a little bit of a learning lesson for all of us to remind us that Spencer Knight is still only 24 years old, even though he's, been truly one of the best goaltenders in the league through his opening 8 starts. It's a reminder that he himself, like the rest of this young roster, is going to go through ups and downs, peaks and valleys. And last night was his first kind of shaky performance here in the 25-26 season, where he didn't look like Superman. He wasn't standing on his head from start to finish to kind of bail the Blackhawks out when they do make those mistakes like he did in the previous 8 starts. Now, some of those goals that he allowed definitely weren't his fault. A couple of them, though, he should have stopped, especially with the way that he played in his opening 8 games. But first time this year that Spencer Knight has surrendered more than 3 goals. Felt like this type of showing, well, I obviously would love for him to play incredibly at a Vezina level from start to finish this season. Hard to expect that from him when he's just barely played 100 NHL games in his first full season as a number 1 netminder, still only 24 years old in his own right, which is remarkably young for a goaltender. Most kids are coming into the league at 22, 23, 24. Spencer Knight's already been there, done that for the last 4 seasons now. So still a very young man. It just feels like he's a little bit older because he's been up in the NHL for so long. But these types of games, they're going to happen for all the young players on this Blackhawks roster. And unfortunately, Spencer Knight, when he had a down night, it was when Connor Hellebuck was stopping Connor Bedard and Frankie Nazar when they had their best opportunities. The Jets, they were the more opportune team. They were the team that just took advantage of their chances, took advantage of their breaks. They were the more opportunistic bunch is the word that I was looking for. And I actually had it written down in my notes. They were now I can't even say it. They were the more opportunistic bunch last night, and they got the better goaltending in the goaltending matchup. That's the way that hockey works sometimes. So I wasn't really all that upset with the Blackhawks and the way that they played last night. It was a tough matchup. Obviously, emotions were running high. I'm sure Winnipeg was very pumped up and fired up in that dressing room to go and give a good effort for Jonathan Toews to get him 2 points against his former squad. And that's what ended up transpiring up at Canada Life Center. Blackhawks kick off their 6-game road trip with a 6-3 loss to Jonathan Toews and his Jets. There are my initial thoughts on what went down last night up in Winnipeg. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, I'll dive a little bit deeper into some stats and analytics and talk about Artem Levshinov and Ryan Green shining in the loss. But first, I do got to give a shout out to one of today's sponsors, which is Game Time. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real. Getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. But that's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. So go and take the guesswork out of buying your NHL tickets with Game Time. All you got to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and then use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps for $20 off with your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off. Per usual, just a reminder, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, please go smash that like button, subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. And if you're tuning in through an audio platform, please go and rate and review. You can do so on Apple Podcasts as well as on Spotify. Thank you all again, Blackhawks fans, for your constant support. Segment 2 on today's episode, getting into some other takeaways and stats that I wanted to mention from last night's game. Haven't talked about the stat line that Jonathan Toews put up yet, just because while he was obviously the story of the night, the talk of the town, his first matchup against the team that he captained to 3 Stanley Cups, one of the greatest and most impactful Blackhawks in franchise history. Conn Smythe, Frank Selke, Mark Messier Award winner, triple Gold Club. I mean, Jonathan Toews did it all with the Chicago Blackhawks. So it's understandable that he was getting all the noise. And he did wind up on the stat sheet in this game for the Jets, but the major leaders of the Jets' victory was that Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Gabe Vilardi bunch. So that's why I wanted to get to them first in segment one. But Jonathan Toews had a pretty strong performance in his own right last night. Of course, wound up on the stat sheet, picking up an assist on Josh Morrissey's goal, which was one of the two real softies that Spencer Knight let in last night. That came early on in the third period and put the Jets ahead 5-1 and basically sealed the Blackhawks' fate. But Johnny Toews was feeling it last night. Not only did he wind up with that assist, but he also led Winnipeg with 6 shots on goal, and it felt like he was really trying to find the back of the net against his old squad. And then, like he always does, absolutely did work at the faceoff dot, winning 14 of his 20 draws in the game, good for 70%. Just, even though would have loved to see the Blackhawks, well, it would have been interesting. I don't know how I would have felt. I mean, I obviously would have been happy to see the Blackhawks win, but it just kind of feels like the Blackhawks are set up to lose these type of reunions. They're now 0-4-0 against Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews since their departures. They'll have a chance to finally go and beat Patrick Kane when they wrap up this road trip on November 9th in Detroit. But yeah, a real strong performance by Jonathan Toews, centering the second line last night. Played, I believe, a season high 20 minutes and like 26 seconds of ice time. So Scott O'Neill was giving him every opportunity in the world to go and score and put up more points against his old team. Definitely played a help in the Jets coming away with 2 points, but didn't, drive success as much as the Jets top line did. Getting over to some other Blackhawk stats that I wanted to be sure to mention. While Jonathan Toews dominated the faceoff dot, Mark Scheifele did pretty good work there as well last night. The only real center iceman that found success for the Blackhawks at the draw actually was a guy who didn't start playing center last night, but ended up taking 9 draws and won 6 of them. And that's Ryan Green, who I was really impressed with in terms of how he handled himself up on the top line after not really looking the part when he was put up there with Bedard and Burakovsky in Tuesday's win against the Ottawa Senators. Didn't really get a ton of shifts along with Bedard in the third period of that game. And I talked on yesterday's preview when I saw after the morning skate that Jeff Blashill had Ryan Green, who, by the way, I've always been a huge fan of. If you've been watching or listening to the show for years, then you know how highly I've thought of Ryan Green. And I said, one of the only people who said that Ryan Green was going to make this team out of training camp. Now, that did happen because Landon Slaggert was a little bit banged up, and had it not, he probably would have opened the year in Rockford. But I am not surprised whatsoever how Ryan Green has adapted to the NHL level immediately and had success at the faceoff dot, winning 6 of 9 draws against one of the best faceoff teams in the entire NHL, split his 2 faceoffs against Jonathan Toews, now up to, I believe, 49.8% on the season at the faceoff dot. Very impressed with Ryan Green in his rookie year, and I thought he undoubtedly had his most impactful performance last night with the Blackhawks. I talked earlier about how he had a breakaway chance stopped, had a shot ring off the post in the third period. I mean, he easily could have had a multi-goal performance, but even without putting up a goal or an assist last night, he was still the only Blackhawks player who finished as a +2 in this game, also chipped in for 2 shots on goal, and I think surprised me and probably a lot of Blackhawks fans with how he kept up with Connor Bedard and Andre Burakovsky on the top line, despite I don't really ever think that's going to be a spot for Ryan Green. I envision him as more of a 3rd to 4th line center, but he looked like he was capable of playing a skill game along with Bedard and Burakovsky last night. And because of that, we saw Ryan Green again on the top line with Bedard and Burakovsky during practice this morning ahead of their contest with the Edmonton Oilers on Saturday night. So fully expect that top line to be ran back for a 3rd consecutive game. And I think Ryan Green is deserving of that opportunity because of how well he fared along with Bedsy and Andre. They were the most efficient trio of the game for Jeff Blashill. I already mentioned Connor Bedard led the Blackhawks led 22-10 in shot attempts when he was out there, 12-4 in scoring chances, 6-2 in high danger chances as well. But I really do feel like Andre Burakovsky is starting to get more comfortable along with Connor Bedard too. I thought they clicked pretty well last night. And then of course, Burakovsky scored that highlight reel goal, one of the best goals so far here this season, in between the legs. And he didn't really have a lot of room to operate, right? Like he was in pretty tight on Connor Hellebuyck, had a defender draped all over him, but still found a way to go between his legs and beat Hellebuyck with a shot for his third goal of the season. That now gives him 3 points over his last two games. And I think him kind of coming to life, and also Ryan Green showing or being capable of playing with the top line at the very least in last night's game in Winnipeg, definitely aids in Connor Bedard being able to get more offensive zone time, being able to cycle in the offensive zone. And I mentioned when going through Deep Dive 1.0 on yesterday's show, the reason why Bedard's analytics aren't very good so far this season is because he hasn't been able to cycle in the offensive zone a ton. And that's, I think, because he hasn't, really been able to mesh all that well with his line mates. We're starting to see that happen more and more with Andre Burakovsky, and led to Burakovsky finding the back of the net last night, and also Connor Bedard picking up 2 points. Also want to give a shout out to Artem Levshinov, who I personally thought might have been the Blackhawks' best defenseman in this game. He had multiple chances for his first NHL goal. Thought he moved the puck really well in the offensive zone, saw his passing lanes really well, and was one of the only defensemen that didn't make like a crucial mistake in this game either. And might have had his best puck moving display on the Blackhawks' second power play unit through his first 10 games of the 25-26 season. Blackhawks led 6-3 in high danger chances with Levshinov on the ice, 6-5 in scoring chances, and 2-1 in goals for. And also, like I talked about in Deep Dive 1.0 yesterday, just a sturdier brand of hockey that we're seeing from Artem Levshinov, particularly on the defensive side of things, I think is leading to him being a lot more composed and just being in the right spots and letting the strengths of his game come out in the offensive zone, moving the puck well. I continue to be impressed by the progress that Artie Levshinov has showed just even in this 10-game stretch, right? It was a bumpy ride for him in the opening couple of games. I did not think he had a good training camp or preseason whatsoever, but he's responded really nicely, and last night might have been his best performance of the season. He picked up an assist for the second consecutive game. I believe now leads all Blackhawks defensemen with 4 assists here on the season. So good stuff out of Artie Levshinov. And while he was shining, I thought it was probably Alex Vlasic's worst game of the season on the top pairing for the Blackhawks. He was on the ice for 4 of the 6 Jets goals, was lackadaisical in coverage, like I said, on Gabe Vilardi's second goal of the game. And all in all, just threw some really bad passes, both in the D zone that led to extended shifts for the Winnipeg Jets, and also in the offensive zone. I wasn't really sure what was going on with his puck moving last night. He had Ryan Green all alone right in front of Connor Hellebuyck for a perfect deflection or redirect opportunity, and the pass that Vlasic threw Green just kind of handcuffed him, caught him in between, and that's just one that, for Alex Vlasic's capabilities, you expect him to make that type of play. Like I said, though, with Spencer Knight, like I said about the rest of this Blackhawks roster, Alex Vlasic's only 24 years old himself. He's still going to have learning moments in his third NHL campaign. He's looked at as one of the elder statesmen, particularly on this young blue line, that the only guys older than him are Matt Grzelcyk and Connor Murphy. He's going to be having hiccups. He's going to have learning moments as well. And last night, to me, was definitely one of them, one that hopefully he'll be able to learn from. Funny enough, Vlasic actually did go on to pot his first goal of the season there in the third period to help the Blackhawks make a little bit of a late charge. But other than that, really did not think it was a good night whatsoever for number 72. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up, the second period, man, what is the deal? Continues to do the Blackhawks no favors. Back against the Vancouver Canucks, up 2-0 in that game on home ice with a team on the back end of a road back-to-back. They go and allow 2 goals early on in the period. That lets the Canucks claw their way right back into the game. That ends up in a shootout loss for the Blackhawks. Then, against the Los Angeles Kings this past Sunday, up 1-0, really good start. Probably should have been up more in the opening 20 minutes, but then they go and take a bad penalty by Wyatt Kaiser early on in the second. Some poor decision-making in transition by the defenseman, by Sam Renzel. Jason Dickinson, a bad turnover in that game as well. The Kings go on to score 2 goals. That gives them the lead going into the third period, where they're able to play their shutdown defensive style of hockey in the final 20 minutes to secure that victory. And even in Tuesday's game against the Ottawa Senators, right? After a outstanding start, going up 3-0 in the first intermission, adding a 4th goal, Connor Bedard's second of the game at that time in the second period, only to allow 3 goals in just over a 4-minute stretch by the Senators to let them right back into the game. And then last night, of the 3 periods, the second period was definitely the worst for the Blackhawks. They gave up a goal early on in the second that put the Jets back ahead by 2. Winnipeg was able to strike a second time from Gabriel Velarde that made it 4-1 going into the second intermission. The Jets had in all 3 periods, they had a 59.5 expected goals for percentage. That was their best, like I just said, of any of the 3 periods. I believe the Blackhawks got the Jets led 6-4 in scoring chances in that middle frame as well. Wasn't as bad as it's been against Ottawa, Los Angeles, and Vancouver, but it was still by no means like the second period the Blackhawks need to have. I don't know what's going on in the locker room during those first intermissions, but there needs to be an emphasis on, guys, we cannot let our foot off the pedal here in the second period. A bad decision by Louis Crevier late in the first gave the Jets the momentum going into that first intermission, and then I thought they were able to keep it going right out of the intermission when they hit the ice for the second period. And that really didn't give the Blackhawks much of a chance to come back in the third period, considering the Jets are a pretty strong defensive group of their own right. Connor Hellebuck in between the pipes in the regular season, he's as good as it gets. So Hawks need to do a better job and need to fix their second period issues moving forward, especially with the next 5 games still coming on the road. But there are my full thoughts on the Blackhawks. 6-3 loss last night to kick off their 6-game road trip. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, before I wrap things up, want to get into a quick update on the Hawks' OHL and WHL prospects. But first, I do got to talk about another one of today's sponsors, which is FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. And what I personally love about FanDuel is that it's super quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. With player props, same-game parlays, and now more ways than ever to get in on the action. Are you ready to play? All you got to do is download the FanDuel app now or go and check out FanDuel.com today to get started. Again, that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet and get $300 in bonus bets when it wins. Segment 3, the OHL prospects that the Blackhawks have are about to be in action here this weekend, and I wanted to bring up the latest OHL power rankings that were dropped back on Monday, something that the Ontario Hockey League does every single week, ranking the top 16 teams, I believe, in the OHL. And coming in at number 1, number 2, and number 3 were Blackhawks prospects' respective teams. Kicking things off was the Brantford Bulldogs, who are making a charge. They're out for blood after getting their OHL championship hopes dashed in the postseason last year following a tough injury for their 70-goal scorer, Nick Lardis, who's doing a lot of great things in his first pro season with the Rockford Ice Hogs. Brantford is back looking for their revenge here this season. They just made a trade actually a couple of days ago to bring on some more talent to join on with Marek Vanacker, Jake O'Brien, Adam Juracek. I mean, it is a loaded Brantford Bulldogs team in the OHL. And Marek Vanacker's been at the forefront of all of their success. He's currently second in the league with 12 goals through his opening 12 games, also 8th in the OHL with 19 points. That's the kind of stuff I wanted to see out of Marek Vanacker in his final year of junior hockey. The goal scoring, along with Jake O'Brien, they might be the deadliest duo in the entire league. Would like to see his playmaking kick up a little bit more here in his final year of OHL play. That was something that was really a strength of his during his draft year in 2023-2024. Didn't necessarily see it as much last year with Brantford and haven't really seen it a ton through, 8 assists in 12 games is nothing to bat an eye at, but I still feel like I would like to see Vanacker kind of make improvements on his puck carrying skills and be a little bit more of a play driver, even though that's probably not what he's going to be at the NHL level. I do think he's going to be more of a goal scorer who can kind of provide you with a little bit of everything. He's also starting to, from what I've read and from what I've seen on the internet, is growing a little bit more into a true power forward type of mold. So I do think goal scoring is always going to be his best offensive attribute, but I would like to see him work on his puck carrying, his playmaking, and leading rushes in transition a little bit more than we've seen from Merrick Vanacker so far this season, just to help him as he gets ready for that next level that he's going to be going to here whenever his season wraps up or at the start of the 26-27 campaign, but not trying to knock Merrick Vanacker. It has been an awesome start to the season for him. 12 goals in 12 games. I expected it to be a very, very productive season out of him, and he hasn't disappointed so far whatsoever. Also wanted to mention Blackhawks prospect Parker Holmes is also, of course, playing for the Bulldogs this season. Now, he's down on the fourth line as he's mostly known for his physicality and his fighting abilities, and he only had 1 assist, I believe, in 21 games last year for the Bulldogs before suffering an injury. He now has 3 points, 1 goal and 2 assists in his opening 12 contests. So good work out of Mr. Parker Holmes. Then coming in at number 2 in the OHL power rankings is the Windsor Spitfires, where, of course, 2024 third-round selection AJ Spellacy is playing here this year. And Spellacy, kind of surprisingly, only has 3 points. He's got the Parker Holmes stat line. 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points in the opening 12 games. And, well, I don't think that should be, super discouraging because Spellacy is never going to be a guy who's known for his offense. If he does make it to the NHL, it's going to be because of his speed, his physicality, his size, his athleticism, and the way that he can kind of use that in all 3 zones to make an impact. Also someone that, because he's so big, isn't afraid to go and step up for his teammates every now and then. That is what AJ Spellacy is going to be known for. However, as a guy who's mostly been Windsor's second line center, and I understand their top line does a lot of the heavy lifting, but for the second best team in the league, playing such a meaningful role, only 3 points in 12 games is a little bit interesting for AJ Spellacy to start off his final year of junior hockey. Then at number 3, we got the Kitchener Rangers, which, of course, Blackhawks prospect Jack Pridham, he returned to them for the 25-26 season, had a commitment to Boston University, but elected to stay with the Rangers because he knows he's going to be playing in all situations, power play, up inside the top 6, and had really good momentum with what he did with the club last year after coming over from the BCHL. It's been a good, not great start to the year for Jack Pridham, I'd say. 7 goals, 6 assists for 13 points in 12 games, over a point per game. I'm not going to knock him, but I felt like he had the capabilities to be right up there with Merrick Vanacker, inside the top 10 in the OHL in points so far this year. Like I said, over a point per game, I'll take that. That's positive out of Jack Pridham, but I think with his wheels, his offensive abilities, and for what he did in the league last year, being right above a point per game, I just expected a little bit of a faster start for him, but of course, still a long way to go here this season. But love to see Brantford championship aspirations in the OHL, Merrick Vanacker and Parker Holmes on that roster. Same with the Windsor Spitfires. Like I just said, AJ Spellacy playing a big role for that team, even if it hasn't led to a ton of production thus far. And Jack Pridham is either on the first line or the second line and top power play unit every single night for the Kitchener Rangers. Those are the top 3 teams in the OHL right now. And I also wanted to bring up what Nathan Boehm is doing over in the WHL as the lone Blackhawks prospect in that league. It's been an awesome start to the 25-26 campaign for Nathan Boehm. And going back to when the Blackhawks drafted him in the 3rd round this past summer, he was definitely my favorite day 2 selection in terms of the upside that he brings to the table. I really do believe Nathan Boehm is going to be an NHL player. I don't know how good of one he's going to be, but I think he's got the body. I think he's got the goal scoring ability, and we've seen some nice playmaking out of him so far this season as well. He's 8th in the WHL in points with 21, 8 goals and 13 assists through 14 games. Just had a 3-point game for the Kamloops Blazers a couple of nights ago. Unfortunately, dissimilarly to the Windsor Spitfires, the Brantford Bulldogs, and the Kitchener Rangers, the Kamloops Blazers are not one of the top teams in the WHL, at least early on this season. They're 6-7-1-1 through their opening 15 games, second to last in their respective division. So unfortunately, Nathan Bain doesn't really seem like he has championship aspirations with the Blazers here this year, but even if it's not the strongest team or the strongest roster around him, love to see that he's the one really leading the way for that offense on the top line basically every single night and has not disappointed. 8 goals through 14 games, along with 13 assists, giving him 21 points. A lot of promising prospects for the Blackhawks in lots of different leagues around the globe right now. But that's going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. As always, thank you all again for joining me in the show. Make sure to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. Follow Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcast. That way you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes. Happy Halloween, everyone. Enjoy your Halloween weekend safely, responsibly. Go have some fun. I'll see you all next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.